Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. We got about 10 minutes before we get started with today's Security Plus study group. You're welcome to hang out for 10 minutes as I get my studio together. Let's see. Let's update the online message. That is updated. Live security groups is right now. Click here to join us. That will be me. Let's check the Twitter. Wait for that. That update will go out 5 minutes from now. So everybody will get 5 minutes to a camera check. That might be something to do. Hi. How you doing? Are we okay there? Are we sized right? Is the background okay? Is lighting all right? That looks okay. And then we got this here and we got this here. So all of those things are working. It's alive. Let's have power. And let's find Keynote on the tablet. Keynote, key, K-E-Y-N-O, Keynote. Found the MacBook. All is good. What else do we need to do? Skype is ready to go. We can get rid of OneNote's fine. We got this here. We got that there. I think we're ready, everybody. Can you believe it? Here in this no man's land between Christmas and New Year's. We'll have to see how many people actually show up. How many of you are going to manage to attend a study group today? Oh, it was so difficult going out yesterday. Nobody wanted to really do anything. And I think it's kind of the same this week. This whole week is going to be a week of trying not to do something. And I'm very good at that. I'm exceptional at all that. Live event chat is up. If you're watching this over on the YouTube side, the live event chat is there on professormesser.com. At the bottom of every page, it's the live event chat, but at professormesser.com/live is the event chat where Mike is saying hello. Hello, Mike. Welcome. See, somebody made it. Mike made it. Mike can make it. Everybody else should be able to. Oh, I hope everybody had a very nice holiday. I have many things to do. But I did take some time out to relax and do things. Just hang out. It was very nice. But now I have to do work. Now work is here. Now there's things to do. Let's see, I have Socrative. I guess I could put the quiz up, right? We could launch a quiz, Security Plus. Today, next, teacher pays, do not require name start. There you go. Now you've got a question waiting for you at professormesser.com/QA. And you can stay right on that page to answer the questions today. I got some good ones. I think they're good ones. We're going to find out. We never know, do we? Till we finally get there. You can kind of see the answers on my screen over my shoulder there as people are answering. Hopefully that will work, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. With the questions and the answers and the things. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see, it's 1 minute until the tweet goes out, so I'm sort of monitoring that. It was a nice Christmas. It was a nice holiday. I got to see family. We got to enjoy ourselves. But I still have to take the tree down. Are we recording? We're recording here. Yeah, I can see them going down my lower right here. You can see the Cylons. It's not really a Cylon, though, because it goes in a circle. I realized that. Someone called me on that. So, a little pedantic, but I can appreciate that. There's also recording happening here. Good. And recording on YouTube. So we got technically 4 recordings going because this is 2 recordings down the bottom right. One is recording the program, which is what you see. One is recording the preview, which is if I push a button, that's what you see. So I have program and preview right in front of me. You can see it. So what you see is on the right side. What you will see is on the left side. So I can sort of set up the shot with what I want you to see by determining that, and then I cut to it. Oh, that's right. It's snow and ice other parts of the world. It's cold here in Florida. It's icy cold. It's 53 degrees. I can barely function with 53 degrees. That's like the high today. What are we going to do? Should have moved south. Da, da, da. Buffalo, Buffalo, Buffalo. Buffalo, Buffalo, Buffalo. Welcome, Buffalo. I think that's not enough buffaloes. I think there was a couple more buffaloes needed to be in there. Hard to remember. And I spent some time in Central Florida where the high was 82 during the day. It was awesome. It's pretty nice. All right. I need a little bit of some audio. That looks good. Oh, so the tweets have gone out. Welcome everybody who's shown up in the tweeter and the Facebooking and the notifications. Welcome, welcome. We'll get started in about 4 minutes. 4 minutes till we get going. And we'll see how we do with these Security Plus questions I've got ready to go. I think all the questions, or at least most of the questions today, all the questions are 501 related, but most of them are 401 related as well. I think I'm slowly weaning away from the 401 questions and trying to put more 501 in there, which I think is good. I think that's what we need. Oh, my gaming hand. It's a little stiff. Got so much. Yes, this will count for 1 hour of webinar-based CEU. So I'll give you instructions as we get through this. Sometime in that first hour, you will hear how to obtain that continuing education unit credit. Of course, now I've got something in my throat. Oh, good. Maybe I can cough all the way through this. That'd be great. Utah checking in. Very nice. Welcome. So we've had Utah, Alabama, Nolens, Buffalo, Ohio. I'm in Florida. Let's play the squares. Let's play the feud. 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Where's the live feed playing at? Oh, that's a good point we could put in here. Live stream. ProfessorMesser.com/live. Boom. And I could probably put study group Security Plus group. Yeah, I pushed this one off until today because I was on holiday. There, all the southwest of the UK. Very nice. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Fort Worth, Texas, checking in. Very nice. I love Fort Worth. This will be an hour for the study group Q&A, and then I kind of open the phone lines up and we kind of just sit here for whenever. My beard keeps getting caught on my jumper. Right there. It's one of the dangers of this. It's trying not to get yourself caught in the zipper. Let's see. We got a minute to go, everybody. 1 minute. How are we doing here? Doing pretty well. A lot of you showed up. Welcome. Thank you so much. So nice that you're here. Oh, and I haven't gotten a note yet. I've been going back and forth on Twitter with the United Parcel Service, one of the private parcel delivery companies here in the United States, that actually they don't deliver. They're a private parcel service, not a private parcel delivery service, which is the problem. Having the darndest time. So, of course, I tried Twitter. That didn't work very well either. I'll have to try something else when we're done here. Maybe somebody can help me. We've got all the links that you need are at ProfessorMesser.com/live. If you're watching this in the replay, none of those links are really going to do much for you. So sorry. But you can at least hang out, watch the video. So that'd be something too. All right, it's top of the hour for me and for you. So why don't we do a study group and answer some questions and do some stuff. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2017 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group, our final Security Plus Study Group of the year. 2017 is going out with a bang. Thank you for joining us. If you're here live, you actually are at the very end of December because it's December the 27th. Normally, we have this during the third week of the month, but it's the holidays and I was traveling and you were traveling. And so now we've got this time between Christmas and New Year's where I thought I would slide in a study group really quick just to see if we could really make something happen. That would be sort of fun. This first hour, we're going to do Q&A. I've got Q&A. I've got Security Plus questions ready to go for you. So we're going to talk all about Security Plus. You're going to answer them online. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment, and we'll all collaborate together. At the end of that hour, I will shift gears. We'll put away the questions. I open up phone lines. It's really open phone lines. You can call and ask questions about Security Plus on the phones and in the chat room, but you also are more than welcome to ask about, well, anything, really. It's open phone lines. You can do whatever you'd like. We're able to make this happen thanks to your support, your ongoing support of watching the videos. Every minute of every one of my Security Plus training course videos is available to watch absolutely free on ProfessorMesser.com. There's no registration. There's no extra cost. You watch everything and it's all available. Some people like to have an offline version, which includes video, audio MP3, my course notes. All of this is available as a package to purchase and offline. You can find out more about that at ProfessorMesser.com/GetSecPlus. Don't forget about our Twitter accounts, our YouTube accounts, our Facebook accounts. You just type in ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter/Facebook/LinkedIn/ whatever it is. I'm not sure. I don't do much on LinkedIn /Instagram. There's one. I sometimes occasionally will put things out there. The Mrs. Professor Messer is much more Instagrammy. She's much more into the Instagram than I am. I need to get with the program there. So there's a lot of neat stuff that happened during the holidays. Also, don't pay full price for your vouchers. You can find a discount available at ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. Now, there's also questions that you can take anytime you'd like. You don't have to wait for study group. You can go to ProfessorMesser.com/popquiz, and I've got Security Plus questions out there that you can go through. I think it's over 100 questions are out there. That might be something to go through before taking your exam. This is a live video stream, but I also make available a podcast audio-only version of this that you can find at ProfessorMesser.com/podcasts. The podcasts are available for my A+ Network Plus and Security Plus study groups, and you're welcome to subscribe to any of those. They will be automatically downloaded and put into your podcast catching audio mobile device thing. Whatever you like to use for podcasting, it'll just show up there. Usually I get them available and online the next day. Sometimes it takes longer than a day. You can always check in if you're trying to get them very quickly. Now, today we're going to do questions, though. This is live Q&A. You get to participate. It's not just me asking questions. Everyone who's watching this live can participate. And the way you do that is go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. I'll open up a brand new window, and you'll be able to answer the questions right there on the screen. There will be a question waiting for you right now if you go to the right place. If you've downloaded the Socrative student app, this is the service we're using for this, Socrative. The Socrative student app will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word. Make sure you spell it right, ProfessorMesser. And if you go to that link or you pull up the app or you somehow make it over to Socrative, you will see a question waiting for you. And the question is, which of these is the best part of the fruitcake? Which of these is the best part of the fruitcake? Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and you'll see answers. Let's see if I can put up the answers. Here we go. The possible answers are A, candied fruits, B is nuts, C is cake, D is spirits, and E is eh. I know you fruitcake people. Some of you are just not into the fruitcake. So I had to put an answer there for you as well. And you can see we're pretty good mix. 26% say cake, 26% say candied fruits. It's a tie effectively for those things. Now I realize this is not a Security Plus question. All of the rest of the questions today will be Security Plus. This is our warm-up. This is to make sure that you can get into this Socrative, make sure you're in the right room, make sure that you can see the answers. If you can't see this question, you can't see these answers, then you're probably not in the right room, which is Professor Messer, all one word. Make sure you spell it right, or there'll be just no question there. It'll say waiting for something to happen, waiting for an instructor. Well, the instructor's already here. Now, as we go through this today, this is where you want to answer these questions. Do not answer the questions in the chat room. Once we start up with the Security Plus questions, you should answer them online at professormesser.com/QA. So that's a pretty good mix, though. I think this is probably this like candied fruit, nuts, cake, spirits. Yeah. So that's one where that's something good to go. Now, why did we even bother with the best part of the fruitcake? What's that about? Well, it's because today, National Fruitcake Day, everybody. So if you've ever wanted fruitcake, this would be the day to have it. If you have some fruitcake, this would be the day to enjoy it. So that would be something good to have on these pieces. Why not have a warm-up question be a port number or such? Somebody just wants to jump right into it and get these questions going. It's a warm-up. It's something fun. I hope you've enjoyed these odd little questions I put at the very beginning. But now let's jump into Security Plus. Now that we're in here and everything's working, let's get some things going on. As you may or may not know, the Security Plus certification, there's actually 2 Security Plus certifications exams you could take right now. Same certification, but you could take one of 2 different exams. The exam that's been around since April of 2014 is the SY0401, and it's going to be retiring in July of 2018. The SY0501, a brand new set of exam questions, was released on October the 4th. So it's only been around a couple of months now. We've had these new questions out, not even 2 months old at this point. I guess November 4th, December 4th, almost 3 months coming up. But because the 401 is not going to be retired until July, you got an overlap. You could take either one. And it doesn't matter which set of questions you take, you still earn the same Security Plus certification. Some people really like to take the newest exams. So you could do that. There's much more study materials available, however, for the 401 exam. If somebody asked me right now, which one of these should I take? I would say you can take either, but there's much more content available for the 401 right now. I would think after January, the end of January, you will see a lot more of the 501 content finally out there as people are creating and constructing and making it available. Your best bet is the 401, but either one of those passing earns you the Security Plus certification. Employers really don't care which one of these you take. You will only take this exam one time in your life anyway, and 3 years from now, you'll be renewing it. So nobody ever takes the exam again, unless you just love to take exams, I guess. Nobody ever wants to renew by taking an exam. There's many other ways to renew these days, much less difficult to renew. They made it very, very easy to renew these days. We can talk about that. The exam itself, 90 minutes long. You're going to get a maximum of 90 questions. You could get fewer than 90 questions. The passing score on the exam is a 750 out of a range between 100 and 900. Yeah, I don't get it either, but they intentionally made it that way. Your goal is to go into the exam and answer as many questions correctly as possible. That's the way you pass the exam. There's no way to figure out how many questions you need to answer or what type of questions. That's just the way it works. The exam itself is both multiple choice, which we're all accustomed to, pick A, B, C, or D, but you could also get at the very beginning of the exam performance-based questions. These performance-based questions are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to perform a particular function. They may be asking you to put things in a particular order. They may be asking you to match things on the screen. It's any type of question they can think to throw at you. So your goal is to know everything that's on the exam objectives. As long as you know that, it really doesn't matter how they ask the questions. You're going to do fine on this. Well, let's do some questions right now. Let's do some Security Plus questions. The first question I have for you, in fact, is a performance-based question. This is just like the exam, isn't it? The first thing we're going to do is have a performance-based question. So I'm going to, before we get to that, I'm going to have a look and make sure I've got everything that we need on here to show you this performance-based question. And I think I have all of the answers for this. Yes, I do. All the answers and questions for you. So the question is, here we go. Let's get the next one up. There it is. So my question to you is, of these 6 things, Are they a symmetric algorithm, an asymmetric algorithm, or a hash algorithm? My head cut off the algorithm part there, but you can see what's listed there. So I've got 6 different items here, and I want you to categorize these as one of those 3 things. So don't put it in the chat room. You want to just write down here, one is, I guess we could say S, A, or H to make it easy to type. The 6 items that I have here are RIPE-MD, DSA, RSA, RC4, MD5, and 2FISH. Those are the 6 things that you need to categorize. So you have to decide if they're all symmetric. You could say 1S, 2S, 3S, 4S, 5S, and 6S. If you think they are in the same order, you could say 1 is symmetric, 2 is asymmetric, 3 is hash, 4 is, you can go to any way you'd like. Maybe they're all hash, and you would put 1 is hash, 2 is hash, 3 is hash, 4 is hash, 5 is hash. Each one of these is different. Well, not different, but each one has one answer. So for each of these, decide, is a RIPE-MD a symmetric algorithm, asymmetric algorithm, or hash algorithm? For DSA, is it symmetric, asymmetric, or hash? For RSA, is it symmetric, asymmetric, or hash? So just go through each one and see if you can understand, realize, think about which ones these are. We're getting some answers in now. I'm seeing folks send these through. Some of you are saying, what is that you're talking about? And that's when you know there's some studying to be done. If you're wondering because all of these are real things, by the way. None of these are made up. That's not a trick question. All of these have a real answer to be symmetric, asymmetric, or hash. You have to go through each one and figure those things out. If you don't recognize, there's an opportunity for you. And that's what we're trying to do here. I'm not expecting anyone to get 100% of these correct. I'm trying to ask questions that are going to make you think about the topics that are in the exam objectives. And those are going to be the topics that you will be asked about on the exam. So hopefully that's given you a hint there off that. That's one of those that doesn't make any sense to me, that you have to go through and figure out why it would not make sense to you. That makes sense. That's a pretty good one, though, to have to sort through. A number of you are answering these questions. A number of you are going slowly on this. Don't Google it. Do not go Googling that. For those, that's one of those that you have to pretend you're sitting in the exam right now and going through, and then you'll be fine. So this is one of those, to be able to look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I know I kind of put these in the wrong order on the screen. So hopefully you've got these that you can sort through on the screen. And the reason they were in the wrong order is because I had them in the wrong order originally. So let's have a look at these different options here. I've got RIPE-MD. So do we know what RIPE-MD is? Have we looked at that? RIPE-MD is the Race Integrity Primitives Evaluation Message Digest, an odd name, but it is a hash that is used primarily with messages and being able to use with email. It's used with other things as well. So that's one we might run into when you're looking through that. DSA is the next one on my list. DSA is the digital signature algorithm, and it is an asymmetric algorithm. Let's do another one. Let's do the one that I numbered 4, but is the 3rd in the list, RSA. RSA, which is really, if you're looking at Socrative, they're actually numbered properly. RSA is Rivest, Shamir, Edelman. This is one of the original asymmetric algorithms, the RSA algorithm, and that's indeed asymmetric. So that makes sense to have it there. RC4. RC4 is the Rivest Cipher 4, Ronald Rivest, or Rivest. Is it Rivest or Rivest? In any case, it's a symmetric algorithm. This is very commonly used, RC4. We see that used a lot for doing symmetric encryption on the old wireless stuff on the web. The MD5 is a hash, the message digest algorithm, MD5 hash. This is one where it's nice to have that capability there and have those hashes available. This is also on the last one, 2FISH. So finally, 2FISH is a symmetric algorithm. It's just called 2FISH. It's not the abbreviation. It's actually what it's called. So that's one where if you look through these and you're looking at the names and you're looking at what they are and you're trying to figure out, is it asymmetric, symmetric, or any of those things, that's where you'll run into this. So that's very common to run into these things and have those there. So hopefully that's one you recognize. Now, if any of these are things you don't recognize, if they're things you didn't understand would be on the exam, or you're wondering where these came from, then you want to go to the CompTIA exam objectives and look through those. It's going to help you a lot to have that content there and have those pieces available. So hopefully that's something that will help you whenever you're looking for different questions on your exam. Hopefully you're able to get some of those right as you're going through this list. Let's shift gears and move to a multiple choice question. Remember, don't answer this in the chat room. You want to answer at professormester.com/QA. So here's our next question. Which of the following would be most associated with TOTP? Which of these would be most associated with TOTP? And your possible answers are A, log into Facebook, B, encrypt an email with PGP, C, use a badge to unlock a door, D is digitally sign an Outlook message, and E is store a password in a database. Hopefully, that's one that you will know. You have to know immediately what TOTP is, though, to be able to understand this. This is very common on the exam, by the way, for someone to see a question that's not asking you what an abbreviation means. It's asking you, how do you use this technology? And they will ask you by using just the abbreviation. So you not only have to know what the abbreviation means, but you have to know how to implement it as well. In the chat room, Kyle's asking, you can take the SY04 one until July 31st. That is correct, of 2018. So you've got 6 months or so until that particular exam is retired. So it's one of those. If you think you can do it before July, then you could take the 401. If you're thinking to yourself, I'll never be able to study and have everything ready by then, maybe you start with the 501. But you want to study and take the exam that you've got the exam objectives and that you studied for. Don't study for the 401 and go in to take the 501. Don't study for the 501 and go in to take the 401. You're not going to do very well. Make sure you have exactly the right study materials that match the version of the exam that you plan to take. Boy, that's an important one. You do not want to walk in and have a problem associated with that. So hopefully you've been able to look at this question and answer it. So hopefully that's something that you've been able to go through. Which of the following would be most associated with TOTP? Let's see how we did with this one. We're sort of torn on the answers. The most number of people, 33%, answered log into Facebook. So about a third of you said, we use TOTP to log into Facebook. 21%, really a tie for second, with E, store a password in a database, and C, use a badge to unlock a door. And 16% of you said to encrypt an email with PGP. 9%, single digit, said digitally sign an Outlook message. TOTP. So here's where we really want to be able to use TOTP. So TOTP means that it is a time-based one-time password algorithm. TOTP, time-based one-time password. That's what those things are with those. So normally we would use this to be able to log in to something. We would use this as a secondary form of authentication. This is very common to be able to use TOTP. It's usually because there's a synchronized method like is used on this pseudo-random key generator. So back where you're logging in, they have exactly the same key generator that's being used, and you're going to match up with that key generator. And both sides are going to check that number. It is time-based, which means it's going to change as time goes on. And it's all time-stamped via NTP. Everybody knows what the next timestamp is going to be and when that's going to change. And they're very good at syncing themselves up also over time. If any of those clocks slip, it happens to know what the previous one was, what the next one's going to be, and it knows if you type one in that it needs to move up or move back a little bit based on that. The timestamp, mine increments every 30 seconds, but you might have a TOTP system that increments shorter or longer than that. Just depends. You can see these used all the time by organizations like Google and Facebook and Microsoft, and on battle.net, Blizzard uses them to be able to authenticate into all of their games. Very common. This is not the only method for as another factor. There are other methods to use that can be used for factors of authentication. This is simply one of those, and it's one that you do need to know for the exam. This is a very important consideration as you're trying to determine, how do I set up an authentication method? Where should I go to get this authentication method set up? What method should I use for multiple forms of authentication? A TOTP may be one of those methods, and someone will come in and show you TOTP, and here's our TOTP solution. You need to know what that means and how it will be implemented to be able to do that. Very useful to have that capability. Also part of the SY0501 exam, section 4.3, access control technologies. This is also an SY0401 exam option as well. So hopefully that's one that you remember. That means that the folks that answered log into Facebook, the 38% of you got that one absolutely right. We would not use this time-based one-time password algorithm to encrypt an email with PGP. Usually there is a passphrase associated with your PGP key. That's what you're using to authenticate with PGP. Using a badge to unlock a door doesn't use any additional method. I guess it could. Most of the time for a door, though, they're using some type of biometric. So you might use your card, but then you might also use a hand or a fingerprint to be able to get in. Digitally signing an Outlook message usually does not use TOTP. And storing a password in a database, we probably would hash that, wouldn't we? We would not use TOTP to be able to authenticate to store a password in a database. We would be storing that with a hash. So yes, you can see this being used on Facebook, on Google. Microsoft uses it, and it doesn't have to use this type of method. It could be one that pages you with the number. So you don't even have to carry around an extra pseudo-random generator or a physical one, or to use a mobile one that's on your mobile device. They will page you with the number. Probably SMS pages are not the most secure method of doing this type of thing, but it is a TOTP. It is a method of doing this to be able to have that there. So it's another example of how that works with all of those pieces, something you can think about too. So well done, the folks that answered A, log into Facebook. Got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another question. Got one here. The question is, which of the following would be the best description of a compensating security control? Which of the following would be the best description of a compensating security control? Well, you've got a number of options available. A is login banner. B is a door lock. C is an intrusion prevention system. D is an uninterruptible power supply. And E is a fence. One of those is absolutely a way to describe a compensating security control. Compensating security control. So obviously this is directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. That's a very specific type of security control. So you first have to know what a compensating security control is, and then you have to be able to answer what that is and how it's implemented. Again, it's one of those where they're not asking you what a compensating security control is. They want you to know how to use or how to implement that particular technology, methodology, whatever that is. They want you to know how to use it. That's probably the most important part of the exam. In the chat room, somebody earlier was asking, so is the 401 exam harder than the 501 exam? Based on the content, I would say both exams are probably pretty evenly matched from a difficulty perspective. The content is exceptionally different between the two. I would say in the 501 exam, the content, half the content's new. Not that it's that different, but it's all new type of content. They restructured the exam to a very large degree, more than you would commonly see with an update. But the difficulty level on the exam is pretty similar, it appears. We'll know more once more people have taken the exam, but I think most of what we've seen so far is a pretty similar look and feel to the 501. I don't think CompTIA is planning to make the exam any more or less difficult. I think they're trying to keep things exactly the way they were and being able to use those things. So hopefully some of you have had a chance to answer the question, professormesser.com/QA, and have those there. Compensating security control. Let's have a look at how we've answered this. We can see that 45% of you said intrusion prevention system, 18% said uninterruptible power supply, and then a tie for third effectively with login banner, door lock, and fence. So we've got a number of options there. Now, all of these, of course, are security controls. So we can use all of these methods to secure things, but only one of them is a compensating security control. Well, there's different types of security controls, obviously. One type of security control is a deterrent, one that would maybe not restrict access to anything. It doesn't prevent anyone from doing anything, but it's more of a discouraging type of message, like, please don't do anything bad to us. So you see a warning sign. Warning sign doesn't stop anybody, but it might give somebody pause. A login banner is a similar thing. You've seen these login banners where you're connecting. It says only authorized users may log in to this. There's legalities involved in why you want to put that on a system if somebody's hacking in. That's why we see these login banners, because the legal system, at least in the United States, the one I'm most familiar with, means that we at least gave someone a warning that they shouldn't be doing this, even though technically speaking, yes, they shouldn't be doing this. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but legally it helps if you have that login banner there, and legally it helps if there are messages at the bottom of an email. Technically speaking, it actually does have a difference. A preventive security control, one that actually prevents something. So you've got a door lock, a security guard, a firewall. That is something that will prevent a system from happening. That's not what we're looking for either. We're looking for a compensating security control. There's other security controls. We've got, for instance, detective security controls, which may not necessarily prevent the access, but it gives you a warning. It lets you know somebody was trying something bad. Intrusion prevention system or detection system. You could probably put an IPS in both the detective and one that is a preventive, because it can stop things as well. I guess IDS would be the true detective system to have that there. A compensating security control doesn't prevent an attack from occurring. It actually will allow you to restore the system using some other means. So somebody's trying to do something bad, this compensates for that, so that the bad guy doing something doesn't actually affect you, or it minimizes the impact of what the bad guy is doing. So you've got options of this. If somebody is deleting your data, you've got backups. There's a compensating security control. If you've got a site that goes down, maybe you have a backup site that you can move to. Or if you've got power goes out, somebody pulls the power plug on everything in your place, you've got some type of backup power system as a way to compensate for that. So if we look at the answers that we had here, the one that does qualify as a compensating security control would be D, an uninterruptible power supply. And that's the one that is the correct answer. It would not be an intrusion prevention system. That's more of the preventive, literally a preventive security control, and in some cases detective, depending on how you implement the IPS, because not all IPSs actually prevent. Some of them are put in mode to only detect. A login banner, again, not one that we would run into. That would be more of the security control that would be non-compensating, really just warning people of things that might be happening. And if you're ever working in a system that has door locks and fences, those security controls can be very useful, but they're not a compensating security control. So whenever you start looking at all of the different options available, you know that anything that might be compensating is going to be something like an uninterruptible power supply. So if you answer D, you got that one absolutely right. So make sure that you know all of those different security controls. I think we didn't even go through the corrective security control that can correct once somebody gets into your systems. But those are all of the different modes, the different security controls, rather, that you should absolutely know about on the exam. There are a lot of things you have to know on the Security Plus exam. The exam objectives themselves are extensive. All of the topics from all of the exam objectives are in my videos. So you can go through all of the videos and take some notes on what those things might be. But I've also created notes that you can use as well to be able to do this, to be able to not have to go through every video and be able to capture every single bit of information. What I've done is put them all together for you in a set of course notes. The 401 course notes, 35 pages long. This is one that can be provided as a PDF. I've also got a printed version of this available. There's also a 501 version that's brand new. So those of you taking the 501 course, there's the 501 version, 94 pages long. I literally did put every single thing into, in fact, here's the 501 course notes if I was to push the button properly. There's the 501 course notes, just huge. They're 94 pages of every bit of text, every graphic, everything from all of my videos. In fact, I kind of updated some of them that took the animation from the videos and put them in here as a static image that you can actually follow with 1, 2s, and 3s and be able to see all of those pieces. They're all available on the Professor Messer website. This is also a way that people have said, we want to be able to help you. We want to be able to support what you're doing. We like the free videos. This is also something that might help you. So it's a nice win-win, I think. Now, every dollar of this goes back to keeping all of these things up and running, keeping the lights on, and helping us be able to make new courses like the 501 course that's available. You can find out all about these at ProfessorMesser.com. The 401 security course notes is right there at ProfessorMesser.com/SecurityCN for all of those. So plenty to do. Make sure you get the right ones, though. So you have to decide, which exam am I going to take? Then you would get the course notes for that exam. Again, you want to make sure that all of your study materials match exactly what's there for all of those. That's one that's pretty important to have all of that there. So make sure that you have all of the right content and it matches the version of the exam you plan on taking. So that's pretty important to have that there. So one of those, maybe that'll work for you too. Let's do some more questions. I've got plenty more questions there to go through. Here's one. Which of the following would be considered weak encryption? Which of the following would be considered weak encryption? I have some options for you at ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Those options are: A is PGP, option B is DES, option C is AES, option D is WPA2, and option E is ECC. Which of these would be considered weak encryption? That's your key. Maybe you know the answer. If you do, don't answer in the chat room. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and you'll be able to answer that as well. That's something very nice, very useful. So that's one useful to have there. Maybe you know the answer associated with that. Go through that list. I'm going to take a sneak peek, as a matter of fact, see how we're doing with this one. Knowing what a strong encryption is and knowing what weak encryption is an important part of the exam objectives. Make sure that you know what the proper answer is for this. Make sure you understand what those things are as far as weak and strong, and why it is called weak or strong, which are things I talk about in the exam. About the course notes, some folks are saying, if you bought the wrong course notes and you need the right ones, yes, send me there's a contact us link at the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. You're more than welcome to send me a note for little things like that. The reason the 501 course notes are more pages is because there is more content in the exam videos. There's more things I wrote down, and I added more images. I added more demonstrations. And so I tried to put all of those in to the exam. So the exam course notes. So there's a little bit more in there that you will definitely run into. You start working through there. That's an important one too, to have all of that there. That's very nice. That's useful to have that there. And know all these pieces. Do you know which one's weak encryption? Let's see if you do. Let's look at these answers. How did we do? Well, you can see 69% of you, a good majority, said DES. We've got 10% said AES, and then single digits for PGP, WPA2, and ECC. So those are the things we have to know. Which one of those is the weakest? All 70% of you said DES is the weakest, but is it really? What really is strong versus weak encryption? It is really something that's all relative. You really have to look at today's technology. What is strong encryption today will certainly be weak encryption in the future. This is a constant game, a match of time as we create stronger and stronger methods of being able to attack this cryptography. We need to create stronger and stronger cryptography to be able to prevent anyone from getting into our private information. That's because practically anything can be brute forced if you have enough time. What we're trying to do is create an encryption method that if you had to brute force it, it would take so much time that it would take many times the age of the universe to be able to crack that particular type of encryption. These strong encryption technologies The idea of this has been around for a while. Sometimes we run into problems with these, like with WEP, that wasn't necessarily strong or weak. The encryption that was in WEP was actually quite strong, but the implementation of it made it weak. That's really the key for most of these problems we run into with encryption, is that the encryption technology under the surface is solid. It's strong. But the way that it was implemented made it weak. That was the situation we had with WEP. Some examples, strong encryptions and algorithms would be PGP and AES. AES used all the time, and being able to work that. Weak encryptions, DES. DES was a very strong encryption. Then we got faster, better, stronger CPUs. So all of this is really based around how fast can we make a CPU? How fast can we make these ASICs to be able to perform this cryptography? We're seeing this today with cryptocurrency. We're building these systems now that can process these cryptographic algorithms very, very, very quickly, so that we're able to mine all of this cryptocurrency. So we're jumping ahead by leaps and bounds. And we have to make sure that we've got cryptography now that can keep up with this. And in fact, we're doing a pretty good job if you look at the cryptography piece, the cryptocurrency piece, because it takes a lot of CPU cycles to mine out some of those very complex algorithms. This is something that you will see change as time goes by, very slowly, but you will see other algorithms sort of fade off into the past, and we'll create stronger algorithms for the future, usually by taking a very strong algorithm and adding a longer key to it. The longer keys most of the time mean that it will take a lot longer to try to brute force. So those of you that did answer DES were right on the money. If you're using a piece of technology that is using DES encryption, it's probably a very old piece of technology. They're still out there. You'll find old firewalls and VPN devices that still can use DES. At a minimum, you want triple DES. At a probably more comfortable, you probably want to use AES, which tends to be a much popular method. ECC is a type of memory, has nothing to do with encryption. So that's one where the error correcting memory. So that's one where threw that one in there as something that might be to throw you off. Hopefully that did throw some people off. But now you know, okay, ECC has nothing to do with any encryption. That's a memory type. DES, absolutely 71% if you got that one right. Well done for having all of those there. Very nice. Let's do another question. I've got more here. We can go through another one. I've got one that asks about malware. What type of malware pretends to be innocuous but is really quite malicious? What type of malware pretends to be innocuous but is really quite malicious? And of course, like all of the questions on your exam, you want to choose the best answer for this. And your options are A is rootkit, B is worm, C is bot, D is logic bomb, E is Trojan. One of those. So maybe that would be one when you're working through the type of malware pretending to be innocuous but is really quite malicious. Maybe you know the answer to these and have these here. If you ever wanted to work through any of these answers, you should always start with the question and be able to work through all of the different options and pieces through this. This is one where you do have to know what each one of these are. This is almost a reverse question in being able to work this here. This is one where you almost need to know what all of the answers are so that you can then apply it back to the question, which is a little bit different than a lot of the questions where it's asking you for one thing. You really have to know what each one of these technologies is: a rootkit, a worm, a bot, a logic bomb, a Trojan. You do run into that and being able to work through all those pieces. Maybe you do, maybe you have. Maybe you've gone through each one of these. It's in the very first part of the exam. If you think you know what the answer is, go to professormester.com/QA. Do not answer in the chat room. I've got this whole system all ready for you to go so that you can see what the right answers are. I try to get my questions and answers to be somewhere around 50%. We started low in the first part of the study group, and then everybody, I think, caught up with this a little bit more. And you can see that 78% have said it's Trojan. That may be a gimme. Was it a Trojan? This is exactly what it is. Something that looks to be completely innocuous, completely normal. This wouldn't hurt you at all. This would not be something that would be an issue. We should absolutely run this executable on our computer. I know it's a link in an email, but this looks to be something that's so simple and innocuous. This can't possibly hurt us. let's run this one. But of course, once it gets on your system, it's a piece of malware. It may even pretend still at that point that it's not something bad, it's not malicious, but it is. And behind the scenes, it's working to take over, to open doors, to steal data, to delete information, all of those pieces. So that would be exactly the case with a Trojan horse. And indeed, that is the correct answer. For those of you that answered Trojan horse, that'd be a good one to be able to work through. All of those pieces. Whenever I start looking through, trying to understand the differences between all of those, that's where you want to go with this, is being able to have and understand what each one of those options is. Rootkit, I need to know what a rootkit is, how it's put on a system, what it really means. I need to understand worm, how it gets onto a system, what that one is, how that one implements itself. What is a bot? How does that one find its way onto my computer? Make sure you go through those pieces. A logic bomb, same situation, and being able to find that there. Those are the ones where you really do want to go through and understand all of them. If none of these, if you didn't recognize one of them, go back into your notes, go back to the videos, and make sure you understand what each one of those are. That will be pretty important for your exam. Now, for those of you that are watching this video for continuing education credit, the way that you would get 1 hour of webinar credit, and I think for a Security Plus, you can earn up to 10 of these in a 3-year renewal period. That 3-year period is one where you've got 10 maximum webinars. So you can't watch 50 of my videos and renew your system. You can only watch 10. But if you wanted to earn a 1 hour from this, you can go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link that brings you to a form. Put in your name, your email address. That's how I'm going to get it back to you. So make sure that's correct. And somewhere in there, put it that this is the December 2017 Security Plus Study Group. I read through all of these. You can put anything in there, but make sure you at least put that. And make sure that you put that the secret word of the month, the one that you definitely need in there, is a Trojan horse even. You can put either one of those. That lets me know that you watched this video, you at least made it to the 42-minute mark, right? You at least got this far to be able to answer that question. And then I'll know that you must have watched this, and I can send you back credit. I'll send you back an email that has been digitally signed so you know it came from me, and it'll give you 1 hour. If you got multiples of these, you can just queue them up and just send me one email. You can send me with 10. Some people will do that. They'll watch 10 videos and just send me one email with all 10 of them, and then I can send you back a single email that's got credit for 10 of those hours in there, something you can do as well. So that's your secret word of the month, Trojan horse. And hopefully I'll get those turned around to you in about a week. I'm running behind right now. I got to work on that this week and have all of those things there. By the way, if you did answer Trojan, 78% of you got that right. I'm going to have to work a little harder at getting those questions. Try to get it down to 50%. Now, with the newest Security Plus exam, there are a lot of hands-on now. You've got to know a lot of command line functions to be able to perform security tools at the command line. There's, of course, things you need to know about VPNs, things you need to know about connecting systems together, running scans, knowing what a port scan is versus a ping scan. You might want to set up your own lab for that. The folks at GTS Learning have already set up a lab for that, though. You can find out more about this at professormesser.com/seclabs. You've got in your browser now virtual machines. You don't need to load any software. You don't need to have big systems. You don't have to have a ton of hard drive space. You simply open a browser. You hit the GTS Learning Live Labs to be able to do this, where it is a live system, a full-blown Windows, Linux operating systems that they have in these labs. They're step-by-step, take you through screenshots and explanations of exactly what you're doing. They're always available and always from wherever you are with whatever browser you're using, as long as it will use that HTML5, you're able to run this effectively, a remote desktop, into their systems. And they've got extensive documentation that allows you to step all the way through this. There's also a special price if you follow this link. Make sure that you follow this link if you want this special price. You can't get this from the GTS Learning website. You have to go to professormesser.com/seclabs to get their $109 special, which I believe includes not just the live labs, but includes the GTS Learning Security Plus book. It also includes the GTS Learning questions for this as well. And I think they have 501 labs all ready to go out there as well. You can always ask the folks at GTS Learning about that. Find out more at professormesser.com/seclabs. Very nice way to do that. Let's get another question in before we run out of time. Here's the question. Which of the following would be the best way to confirm that all data sent by an application is confidential? Which would be the best way to confirm all data sent by an application is confidential? That sounds like something I'd want to do. Sounds like something I'd be able to have happen. Would it be A, check with the application developer? Would it be B, use 802.1x on your wireless network? Would it be C, perform a packet capture? Would it be D, use a forward proxy? Or would it be E, enable SSL decryption on your firewall? One of those would be the best way to confirm that all data sent by an application is confidential. Maybe you know the answer. If you do know the answer, you can go to professormesser.com/QA. Again, if you're watching this in the replay, obviously the Socrative links are not going to be active for you. You'll be sitting in an empty room. I'm so sorry. You have to be here live to be able to participate live. And we've got all of the live events all set up on a schedule. So if you're watching this in your replay and you're wondering, when can I attend one of these live events? You can go to professormesser.com/calendar or just choose the events calendar link at the top of the Professor Messer website, and you will know exactly when the next event is going to be. That'd be an important one to be able to use. So which of the following would be the best way to confirm that all data sent by an application is confidential? How would that happen? How? Well, let's see what you answered. Possible answers. Let's see. Let's click the button. Are we ready? I think we are. I'm watching as people are Googling. We got about half the folks have answered, and that's about when I'll flip over. So let's see how we did. We're a little torn on this one. We're going back and forth on this one. 35% of you have said perform a packet capture. 30%, 29% now have said enable SSL decryption on your firewall. Those are the two that are in the running right now. Tie for third, 14% said use a forward proxy, and 13% said use 802.1x on your wireless network, and only 7% said to check with the application developer. What? Wouldn't the application developer know? Yeah, application developer has no idea whether the data sent by an application is confidential. Nobody was really fooled with that one and being able to make that happen. This is one of the challenges you run into, though, is that you've got all of this data going across the network. And some of this data has very sensitive information in it. Some of it has private data. Some of it you are mandated to protect, especially healthcare data, financial information. Those are things you don't want other people seeing. So all of these things are going to be sent across the network. You want to be sure that they're being sent as some type of protective data, as encrypted data. You don't want it to be sent in the clear like you see with FTP or Telnet or SMTP or IMAP, at least the non-encrypted versions of that. So the way that you would make sure that everything being sent across this network is being protected, encrypted, and cannot be understood or seen by anyone else is to capture the data as it's going across the network. Now, what if you're somewhere and you're not looking at the data going across the network? What if somebody else was looking at the data going across the network? We see this happen all the time at industry events like DEF CON, where they have the wall of sheep. This is the wall of sheep. This is a monitoring system that they have constantly monitoring the wireless network. And anytime anyone sends information across the network in a non-encrypted form, they post your email address, your IP address, and they show what portion of your password is that was used for that particular service. So you can see services here for HTTP, IMAP, POP3, IRC, and you can see people's email address, and you can see part of their in the clear password. Some of these folks, a little too quick. Some of these folks have gotten, looks like very detailed passwords. They're not using words. They're using letters and numbers and capitalization, and they're doing all the right things, but they're sending it in the clear. That's not how you want it to happen. The only way you would know if that was being sent in the clear for sure is to be able to perform a packet capture. So if you answered C, the 36% of you said perform a packet capture, that's the way to do it. Now, what about these other methods? Wouldn't this be a way to confirm all data sent by an application is confidential? We already know that checking with the application developer is iffy at best. We can't necessarily take the application developer's word for it. The application developer may think they're sending the data in the clear, and they may not be. So we really want to double check what the application developer is saying. You can, of course, check in with them. Just verify what they're saying. Trust but verify. That's what we want to be able to do. 12% of you said use 802.1x on your wireless network, which is an authentication mechanism, has nothing to do with the data being sent by your applications. 13% of you said to use a forward proxy. Forward proxies do not necessarily provide any type of confidentiality at all. So that's something that you absolutely want to be able to know, that if you're putting a proxy in place, that does not equal a protected communication. And in some cases does the opposite. It takes something protected and makes it available. So you can't trust that part either. And enable SSL decryption on your firewall allows your firewall to see what's happening inside an SSL communication. Actually, if you think about that, that probably is less confidential. You're trusting that the administrators of the firewall aren't going to be able to see the data. And in fact, most firewalls that allow SSL decryption do allow people to put exceptions in for healthcare, for purchasing and financial transactions, so that they are not responsible for seeing any of that information go across the network. The only way you'd know is to indeed perform a packet capture. 36% of you got that one right. So not quite the 50% I was shooting for, but maybe we can do better with this next question, which you've already seen a little bit of. So this question, maybe we'll jump back into this one again. The question is, what type of software-based VPN would be the best choice between two computers? What type of software-based VPN would be the best choice between two computers? Would it be A, site-to-site, B, WPA2, C, host-to-host, D, host-to-site, E, asymmetric? One of those would be a type of software-based VPN that would be the best choice between two computers. And for those of you in the chat room, Bill, I did give the key for the credit hours. You do have to know what that is and have that there. So make sure that you know what that particular answer is, the key for the credit hours. You may have to back up a little bit or watch the replay. You can't really back up now on the YouTube side, but you'll have to sneak back in time later on. Watch the replay. The replay, by the way, is available immediately after this is over. There's some processing done by YouTube, and then they make it immediately available. So you don't have to wait until later today or tonight. Really, it was just a moment or two, a few minutes really, and then they make it available on the site, which is kind of nice. You don't have to wait for me to be able to perform editing and get rid of, but I leave a lot of this in. I leave all of the pre-show in. So if you start watching this at the beginning, you can skip 10 minutes and really start, unless you like to watch the pre-show, which is the back of my head as I'm working. What is the pre-show? The pre-show is effectively this. It's me doing this. Do I have everything turned on? Is this working? What am I doing here? What day is it? Oh my gosh, we're starting. What's going to happen? So that's the type of thing we have to run into from time to time and know the answers. So sorry about that. If you missed it, it's in there. You know about the time that it was. Make some notes so you can go back in time and have a look at those pieces. So the question about what type of software-based VPN would be the best choice between two computers, how did we do? 74% said host-to-host. 12% said asymmetric. 9% said site-to-site, 6% said host-to-site, and only 0%, exactly 0%, said WPA2. So this is the real question. This host-to-site, host-to-host, asymmetric, which is it? It's host-to-host. This is a very simple way to get VPN connectivity between two devices. There's a little bit of setup, though, to be able to get everything set up in the software on this system and everything set up in the software on this system. It's not a common VPN connection. Quite honestly, it takes so much connectivity. But if you're at work and you want a VPN into home, this is something you can use. I'm noticing a lot more, though, of the routers, the wireless routers, firewalls that we get for our homes, which traditionally didn't have a lot of VPN capability. More and more of those systems now are allowing or providing VPN connectivity. I have one that's more of a, it's called a gaming firewall, gaming router. At least they promote it as that. I guess because they have enough CPU cycles in that box, they offer VPN as one of the options there. The VPN software on those systems is not that detailed, not that complex. If you're somebody who likes to tweak their VPN connectivity in the options, that may not be the option. They try to make it very turnkey for the home user, which is smart. At least give people the option of using VPN connectivity and being able to use that. So that's one that what might help you. But if you want to do host-to-host VPN, where you've got this encrypted tunnel between these two devices, you do have to load up a bunch of software and configure it properly on one device and the same thing on the other device. There are plenty of websites, though, that can help you understand how you can get that green data through the red tunnel by going through all those connections. That might be something to think about to be able to have that there. So maybe a neat thing to try, too, just to give it a shot. Make and fail. You will try to set this up and it's not going to work initially. Well, how do you troubleshoot it? How do you implement it properly? You might learn a lot by setting up a host-to-host VPN. Might be a good lab for you. There we go. We've got some, now you've got homework. Sorry about that. You got something to do. So we got some time. We have these questions going until the top of the hour. We've got a few minutes left. So we can absolutely get one more question in before we're opening up the phone lines and have that there. And then I'll answer some questions about this 401. So those of you that did answer host to host, you got it absolutely right. C is the right answer. 71% got that one right. Let's do another question. So here's one. What kind of authentication factor would be most associated with a smart card? What kind of authentication factor would be most associated with a smart card? And if you go to professormesser.com/QA, you'll see the possible answers. Something you are, somewhere you are, something you know, something you have, something you do. There's two possible answers here, actually, I think, as I think about this, as I go through these. When I build these questions out, by the way, I sit down. It takes about a half a day to build out all these questions. And I go through them and I try to make it so that one answer is really the most definitive answer. And in this case, that really is, there's one answer that really is most definitive. But if you're someone who's used a smart card, you may think there's another possible answer here. So you got more of a chance here, because I'll give some credit for both of those to have those there. Maybe you know what the answer is. If you think you know, go to professormesser.com/QA and being able to have that there and work through those pieces. That'd be something you might want to work through. Those of you that use smart cards, you probably know this one pretty darn well, and being able to work through it. That is the real question. That is the one I really think important for you to know. So what type of authentication factor most associated with a smart card? Let's see how we did with this one. Since we're sort of low on time, we're getting near the end. 79% said something you have. Now, is that right? 13% said something you know. 14% now. And single digits for something you are, somewhere you are, and something you do. So if we go with the majority, it's something you have. 14% said something you know. So which one is it? And being able to have that there. Which one? That's the one where you really want to know for all of those what it might be. So let's go through and see what the possible answers are that I have written down. So I think the answer for smart card is something you have. But wait, there's another possible answer here, and I'll tell you in just a moment what I think it is. But I think the most obvious and the most accepted answer, the best answer, if you will, is something you have, because it's a card. It's a smart card. This is literally a card. That's what it looks like. It's one of these credit card type things that have the little chip inside of it. That's not an RFID, but it is a similar type scenario. That's a contact type card, smart card. You slide it in. And the reason I say you've got an option here as something you know is because most of the time when you're sliding in a smart card, it also will prompt you for some type of passphrase or personal identification number. So you could steal someone's smart card, but you still have to know that extra piece. So it's sort of a dual answer. It's absolutely something you have, But using it is not only something you have, but also something that you know. And that's why I said 76% said something you have, but hey, 14% said something you know. I'll give for 14% credit on that one, because you do have to know something to use these. You often can see these something you haves as something you're taking around with you, a USB token, hardware, software, pseudo random token generator, and an SMS to your phone, which, as we've mentioned before, probably not the best thing you should use because of possible fraud that can occur there. You have to really trust that SMS. People can easily get in the middle of an SMS communication, see the traffic going on. Well, relatively easy. It can be done. We'll say that. Not easy, but everything's relative in security and being able to work through there. So if you answered something you have, I would say D is really our primary answer there. That's something you absolutely want to know and answer those. But if you did answer something you know, at least a partial credit for something that is there. So that's a good one. It's definitely not something you are. That is not the type of authentication associated with smart card. Smart card is not something you are. So that won't work. Somewhere you are. Smart card has no idea where it is. And something you do. Smart card is not something that happens. You just slide it into a computer. That's not really authentication. Now, putting a card in a computer is not something you do. It has to be something unique about something you do. All of these questions, everything that you're seeing in these study groups, and all of the replays available for all the study groups that are on my website come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. If you have not downloaded and read through these objectives, you are doing yourself a massive disservice. You should absolutely, first thing you do when you're studying is get a copy of these exam objectives. You should use them as a checklist as you're going through everything that you're studying. And before you go into your exam, or even before you even schedule your exam, you should go through this list and make sure that you can check off every single one of these items. That is a foolproof method of studying and passing your exam. If you know everything that is in the CompTIA exam objectives, which are extensive, then you're ready for your exam and you're going to do fine. You're going to pass with no problem if you really know the content that's in there. People ask me all the time, what do I really need to know for the exam? You really need to know everything that's in these exam objectives. There's not any one thing. It's everything. You might be asked about any one of these topics. You definitely have to know them. Well, we've done an hour of Q&A. Can you believe it? But we'll do another hour of Q&A on January the 17th, which is the next Security Plus study group. And as I've mentioned, if you're someone who has gone into this website and you found this video and you're watching this, and this is way after January 17th of 2018, you can always go to the Professor Messer website. There's an event calendar link right at the top of the website. So that might be something to have a look and find out when the next Security Plus study group might be. Let's not forget about the course notes. You'll find those on the Professor Messer website. Of course, you can follow us on YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube, on Twitter at professormesser.com/Twitter, on the Facebook. Just type in professormesser.com/ the name of the social media thing, and you'll have all of those pieces there. The discounted vouchers, for those of you that aren't students with an EDU email account, go to professormesser.com/vouchers. If you are a student with an EDU email account, you should really be going to the academic marketplace, which gives you some pretty nice discounts. Just look for CompTIA Academic Marketplace in the Google machine, and it will take you there. All you kids know how to do it. And of course, my thanks to GTS Learning with their amazing live labs at professormesser.com/seclabs. And you'll find out all of those pieces that are available. Stick around for the next hour or so, however long this takes, however long it goes. I'll answer some questions from the chat room. We'll open up the phone lines. We'll see what's going on with you guys. But thanks for joining us for this first hour. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. Boy, everybody's really got a problem with the word innocuous. Yes, you should know what words mean. That's pretty important to know what words mean. You have to know. Maybe they won't give you one quite as crazy as the terminology I use. I thought innocuous would be relatively straightforward. Maybe it's not. But you do have odd words for Security Plus. Someone was telling me using the term obfuscate, that I shouldn't be using terms like obfuscate, except these are terms that we use in security. In fact, obfuscation is in the exam objectives. I'm certain of it and having that there. That's Does ExamCram use the term exfoliate? Does it really? I I think somebody made an auto-correction error if they're using That's a different exam. Now, ExamCram does have some other types of exams that have nothing to do with IT. So if you're reading through a nursing book, if you're reading through how to become a massage therapist, if you're doing, those aren't the ones we're concerned about for all of those. Let's get the phone lines open. I keep hitting this. I apologize. I keep hitting my mic today. It's this thing that I'm wearing. It's bigger than I'm accustomed to have there. Let's call in and get the phone lines up and running, everybody. How does this work again? It's been 2 weeks and you think I would have never done this ever in my life. It's one of those kinds of things. Let's start a show. Let's do this thing. And then I'll put up the phone lines in just a moment. So you can I can put it up now because you can get there. You can dial. You can call in and have that there. I will talk about this in just a moment. But I need to call in as well because the phone lines actually go into the cloud. So I need to call into the cloud just like you do. Have that there. Let's gotta pull up this thing, and then I type in this thing, and you can't see that because I don't want you to see that piece.
Enter your 6-digit.
All right. Bum bum da 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 ba. And welcome. See, that worked out well. So you're welcome to call in. The phone lines toll free in the continental United States 1-855-785-7545. If you are on Skype, you can use Skype to a toll-free number for free. No Skype minutes required. And you can use that +1 at the beginning with 855-785-7545 to call in there as well. So one of those. So the steps for CE credits, I mentioned earlier there was a CE code, and I gave instructions on how to earn those credits sometime in the first hour of the study group. So you may want to go back and watch that to determine how to get the CE credits for those pieces and have those. So it's another one of those things to look through. But let's see if the phone lines are working. We'll start with the 786 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, how's it going? Good morning. My name is Hassan.
Hey, Hassan. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. I had a question about the security plus the performance-based questions.
Me too.
Because so I have been going through the notes and everything and the book as well. But the performance-based questions, how are they made up? Do you have any material that can help with the performance-based questions?
This is probably one of the most popular questions I get. For the A+ exam, I created a set of what I call my pop quiz collection, which not only has multiple choice, but I also put performance-based questions in that. For my study groups, if you go back over the last year, the first question that I always ask in a study group is a performance-based question. So it's matching, or it's fill in the blank, or it's putting things in the right place, or like today, you had to choose whether it was symmetric or asymmetric or a hash. So I have a number of those that I've done over the last year. That may be worthwhile to go back over those replays to look at least at the first question, because you can fast forward and really find the right things with those pieces. I'd really like to build another pop quiz collection for Security Plus, and that's on my list, but it's not something that I currently have available. What I usually will tell people is the performance-based questions are simply other ways to ask you about the things that you should have learned in the exam objectives, from the exam objectives. So make sure that you know all of that content. And when they talk about doing things, there's in some cases, a nice hands-on component to that. Configuring a firewall. A basic Soho-based firewall is a good example of that. We've seen that in some of my study groups. I've done one of those. Being able to understand what the network design looks like, or how these things are implemented, or just what they are and how to implement them is things you need to know. But like the question I asked initially today, which was you need to know whether it's symmetric, asymmetric, or a hash. There were 6 possible things you had to go through. So it was more of an involved question, but there was nothing there that was really that dramatically different than a multiple choice, other than you had 6 possible options to go through with 3 possibilities for each one of those. So in that particular example of a performance-based question, not a huge departure from multiple choice. There are some performance-based questions I've seen, however, that are a bit more of a departure. They might have you look through a set of firewall rules and answer questions about the firewall rules, or they might have you build a firewall rule to allow or prevent a certain type of traffic come through. So that goes a little bit beyond some of the things you might see on multiple choice. You just have to really be ready for anything, Hassan.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you so much, and happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. Same to you. That's an important consideration. If you're planning to go through these exams, you're going to get those performance-based questions first thing. One of the things I even recommend in my A+ books is I say it might make sense for you to skip over the performance-based questions, go right to the multiple choice, go through all of the multiple choice questions, and then come back. Because on the CompTIA exams, you can jump around to any question you want at any time in the exam. Not all industry exams work that way, by the way. CompTIA allows you to jump around as much as you want. The options that you have available, though, may be better by going through the multiple choice. It jogs things in my memory. So by the time I come back to the performance-based questions, I may be able to apply that information a little bit better. I also don't do well at the beginning of exams. I sit down, there's a lot of stress, the adrenaline's going, I'm reading the question, I don't understand what I'm reading. Is this in English? What's going on? It's hot in here, I'm sweating, that type of thing. So going through the multiple choice allows me to settle down a little bit so that I can attack some of those others. So people in the chat room, do I recommend the Certmaster CE self-paced e-learning? I've never seen it. I'm not a good person to ask. It's a CompTIA product, and I'm not associated with CompTIA. They don't really run anything by me. By the way, they don't really, hey, have a look at this. They don't do that. I probably wouldn't look at it anyway. I prefer the independence of that. Let's go to the 660 area code. You're there, caller. What's your name?
Yes, sir. My name is Caleb.
Hey, Caleb, thanks for holding. What can we do for you?
Well, I just wanted to give you a huge thank you for all of your notes. I passed A+, Network Plus, and just recently Security Plus.
Nice. That's fantastic. How'd you?
A couple.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. You can go ahead.
I was curious because now you've gone through all three of those, and since we are at the end of the Security Plus study group here, what was your impression of the exam? We obviously can't tell people any specifics of questions you had on the exam, but do you think you had the right mix of things to study when you walked in? And how did you feel when you hit that final finish, but the complete button at the end?
I actually felt pretty confident, more so than I did on my earlier exams. I used a combination of your material as well as the Mike Myers book.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I feel like that prepared me pretty well. But the biggest thing on the test, I think, was knowing what security mechanisms work on what system, so what you'd use to protect servers versus hosts and that kind of stuff.
The Security Plus, people have taken the Security Plus exam who've gone through A+ and Network Plus previously, say that the Security Plus exam was kind of a departure. It was a little bit different. Some people even said it was a little bit easier than the other two. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I think I would. It's definitely different, but it's really not a difficult exam. There is a lot of memorization, but as a whole, it's not difficult.
Yeah, I think it's very, it's much more based around topics, procedures, process. There's quite a lot more of that in the 401. And did you take the 401 or the 501?
I took the 401.
Yeah, I noticed in the 501 they've added now command line functions to it. So there's a little bit more of a knowing how to do things, I think, on the 501. I'm going to be very interested to see what people are saying once they take that exam and the pieces. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm actually working on my CCNA routing and switching, and
nice.
Hopefully the CCNA security after that. But I did have a question. I've definitely decided on cybersecurity
Great.
for a career, and I know I want to get kind of the CCNP and CCIE at some point.
Sure.
But for a cybersecurity role, would you recommend getting the routing and switching and the security, or would you say just go the security for the higher level Cisco?
If for someone who's getting into a IT security role of any kind, and I'm speaking as someone who worked as a systems engineer for a next generation firewall company for about 7 years prior to doing this full time, the part that is surprisingly a huge part of what I was doing was related to networking. There was, of course, a huge part related to security as well. But a lot of people, I think, don't realize the amount of networking knowledge you need to be able to properly implement and use these security technologies, because an IDS is going to touch the network. These next generation firewalls that we connect absolutely are plugging into our network, and they're plugging into our network at the edge, which is probably connecting to an ISP over a BGP link. There's probably redundant firewalls in that scenario. So you need to provide some type of redundancy to the outside internet, probably using BGP, but you also need to implement or integrate with the existing redundancy that you have on the inside of your network, which may be a layer 3 routed scenario with OSPF. It may be a switched redundancy, and the switch redundancies are different depending on which manufacturer's switches you're using. They have to somehow integrate with the existing technologies that are there. Then you're dealing with all the protocols, the layer 3 implementations, the subnetting that you have to deal with. When you get into VPNs, site to site, especially when site-to-site VPNs to a third party, because it's not always your company you're connecting to. Now you have to talk to somebody else over there who can take you through all of the networking challenges that you have getting through firewalls, connecting up with VPN, and having all the security layered right on top of that. So just these, I just described 2 or 3 things of the many, many things you would ever do in an IT security role. And you can tell there's a massive amount of networking involved with that piece. If you have a very strong networking foundation, it becomes a lot easier to layer on the security aspect after that. So what I usually will tell people who are interested in getting into security is you need both. Don't miss any of those Cisco or Juniper or other types of certifications and skip right to a security, because you're going to miss a very important foundation that you will need once you get into these IT and IT security or cybersecurity type roles. It will be really, really important. Now, that's a little bit different if you're getting into a penetration testing role. The networking piece isn't quite as important, but there's still some significant networking fundamentals that you need to be able to perform that particular role. But that's a very small segment of cybersecurity. For what most people are doing, which are building an IT security infrastructure for their corporation, for their company, for the government, for the military, for whatever it is, you need that networking foundation there. Don't skip it. And in fact, that may be the great part about security, is that you can start on the networking side. Networking pays really, really well. You can get those jobs and then simply move up and into a security type role later on if that's something you're interested in doing. So that would be my recommendation, is as if you needed more to put on your plate, is not only do the security pieces, but make sure you also get the networking pieces there as well.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. And one more quick question.
Sure.
I saw that the CSA Plus was added to the 8570 DoD chart.
Correct.
Are you planning on doing that yet?
I was hoping, for those of you not familiar with the Department of Defense in the United States, there is a minimum set of certifications in general, of IT certifications that you need to be able to work at different levels within IT for the federal government, not only for the federal government Department of Defense, but also their contractors. And they recently added, Security Plus has been there forever. And that's why a lot of people start with the Security Plus. But as you mentioned, a couple months ago, they just added the CSA Plus, which is that next cybersecurity analyst certification that CompTIA offers, that they position just above the Security Plus certification. I was hoping that by adding the CSA Plus, that there would be people banging down my door to get CSA certification materials, and there has not quite been the overwhelming number of people I was hoping to see. In fact, it didn't really change at all. Nobody else. The uptick in number of people wanting CSA Plus materials was inconsequential, if invisible, at this point. That might change, though, now. Once people realize the CSA Plus is in the DoD list, there might be more now that January is coming along. So I'm still watching and waiting. I still have not changed my position on the CSA Plus that it hasn't quite caught on yet. It's a very viable certification. The content within the certification is, I find it to be quite acceptable. It's very good things you need to know. It's a very practical type of certification. It's a nice next step. I just haven't seen the groundswell of people wanting to use it yet. And for somebody who is an independent content creator, I have to find the things that people want. There's that balancing act I have to play from creating the content, but it also has to be content that people want to be able to watch, or that wouldn't want to watch it. So right now, sort of, I'm still on the wait and see. I've been on wait and see for about a year. So we're going to keep waiting and see, but I'm now looking, obviously, with a lot more interest than I was before they got on the DoD list. That's a pretty good question, Caleb.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. That's I just never know. There's so many different variables that go into determining what I decide to do next, and I just never know. Let's go down to South Florida. 561 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes. Hi, Professor Messer. My name is Ed.
Hey, Ed. What can we do for you?
Well, I, for one, hope that you do get into the CSA. I certainly would like to see some content that you would provide on that.
It would be fun.
It's
not that it's something, it's right in my wheelhouse. I mean, the security piece is what I've been doing for so long. It would make a lot of sense. It just takes a lot of time. I need to have people that can watch it.
I've got a security-related question for you.
All right.
I have a Google phone, which runs, of course, the Android operating system.
Sure.
And I have a third-party password manager on it that I use.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, is there a possibility that could be compromised, say, through a software patch or something like that, where it could be sent to a command and control server somewhere, and they could get all my passwords? Is that something possible, or is there another type of vulnerability that it could be exploited on something like that?
Well, that is probably the question when it comes to password wallets on any type of device, your computer, your mobile device, whatever it happens to be. I use a password wallet on my iOS device for a similar thing. And there are different options that you can enable and disable. And there's also different ways of protecting this data depending on the type of password wallet you're using. For example, the password wallet that I use on my device is storing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of passwords, along with some very sensitive information that helps me run my business. Whenever I store that information in the cloud using this password wallet and their service, I have already gone through the process of trying to understand how do they store it. And they store everything encrypted. The communication between my device and their storage is encrypted. And the only decryption that's available is using the passphrase that I've set up for my wallet, which means that unless you know that passphrase, there's no way that you're going to be able to decrypt that information unless you go through some type of brute force. And hopefully you've made the passphrase difficult enough that that's not going to be a concern. So the real question is, if I was going to get that data, just as you have postulated, the key is taking advantage of it on the device. If somebody, in fact, I show an example of this in my latest Security Plus videos of somebody layering on a fake keyboard on the top and making you type things in, and you think you're typing in something else, but really they're capturing the keystrokes. That's something that could certainly be done. on these devices to be able to capture that passphrase and then log into your password wallet from somewhere else. And that's why a lot of these password wallets will use two-factor authentication. They'll require you to perform another function. You have to update your passwords occasionally. You just never know what type of thing could be exploited to be able to take advantage of that, because the bad guys know if they can get your password wallet, that's fantastic data. They are home free once they get that data. But the folks that are making the password wallets make it very, very, very difficult for somebody to gain access to that information unless they've really taken over something on your local machine. And that's why a lot of the videos I describe the best practices that you should follow to be able to prevent anybody from gaining access to this. My password wallet uses my thumbprint. So although somebody could take advantage of me, they could hold me at knife point and make me put my thumbprint there. Somebody would have to be in front of me to be able to make that happen. So that's one of the ways that I protect my wallet, and I have to use that every time I go into the app. It doesn't cache that information. You might want to consider doing other things on your devices as well. So make sure you think about how you want to protect this data and the other additional methods and authentication factors they have available, and take advantage of those, because you definitely are susceptible to any type of exploit, even the ones we don't know about yet. And those are probably the most important ones, are the ones they haven't found yet, the bad guys get to first.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Professor Messer.
Thanks, Ed. Good luck. I love my password wallet. I think if I looked, I probably have close to 1,000 passwords on there, and I keep like secure notes on mine. I have detailed notes in there. People would want to gain access to my data for sure, because everything's in that password wallet. You know, I've got a backup of the wallet stored somewhere safe offline, so if anything happens to me, my family can get into all of these accounts. Those are things you have to think about as well. Like if you've got something stored there, how do you gain access to it? What about all of these things that you've got there in pieces? And yeah, good example in the chat room. Yeah, cryptocurrency is a good example of that, because that's really your wallet. It's just like a physical wallet. You need to keep your money close to you and have those things there, but there's ways to back it up and have that there. We can have a cryptocurrency conversation later, but let's go to 419 area code and talk to this caller. Hi, caller. What's your name?
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Kyle and I'm calling from Northwest Ohio.
Welcome, Kyle. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi. Well, first of all, I would like to, again, just like every other caller, thank you for everything you've done. Your notes are very helpful and your videos are tremendous help as well. Right now, I am studying for the Security Plus certification. As a full-time college student, it's kind of hard to do that sometimes. So I've been slowly but surely studying since early summer.
It's hard to do that when you're not a college student too, by the way.
Yes, I'm sure it is. I was curious as I found a CompTIA package bundle that I was curious on purchasing. It comes with Certmaster and an extra voucher. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with their combo package. I'm not at all familiar with Certmaster, other than what I've seen of the advertising. I've never actually used it before, but I'm familiar with what it is.
Okay. So I've actually am looking to purchase that sometime in the not too distant future. Well, really when I'm ready to take the exam, of course. And I was wondering, once I purchase that, do I have to schedule a test date right away, or can I just schedule it whenever I'm ready?
Well, there's two things you should consider. First is, if you are purchasing some of these online vouchers, especially the ones from CompTIA, and you are a student with an EDU email address, make sure that you're purchasing it from the academic marketplace on CompTIA. Your discount is effectively a 50% discount on these products. If you're going to the normal CompTIA marketplace to purchase, then you're missing out on a on a great discount if you have an EDU email address. So that's just one thing that I'm telling you, but I'm really telling everybody who's watching to be able to take advantage of those. The way that it usually works, though, is you're purchasing a voucher, and the voucher has an expiration date. So they're effectively sending you a code, because CompTIA is not the one that administers the exams. They use not Prometric. They use they used to use Prometric. They're doing everything from Pearson VUE now for all of their exams. So you're getting a voucher. You're effectively paying for the exam through CompTIA, and they're giving you the special code that they will email to you. And then you, at some point, will go to the Pearson VUE website to finally sign up and take the exam. But as long as you do that before the voucher expires, you're fine. Sometimes your vouchers have a 12-month expiration. Sometimes they will sell you a voucher that has a 2-month expiration or a 1-month expiration at a greatly discounted price. So it really depends on where you find the vouchers and what type of promotions CompTIA is doing and how their partners are selling these things. There's all kinds of different scenarios. If you're buying from the CompTIA academic marketplace, sometimes they do offer some discounts there as well. So that might be an advantage to you to look at that. But it's really up to you. Make sure you find out before you buy the voucher how long the voucher is good for. And most of the time it tells you this voucher is good for 12 months or this voucher is good for 6 months. They'll put it in the description of the voucher that you're purchasing.
That's interesting you say that. Yeah, I actually didn't think about voucher expiration dates. That's very good to know. So I mean, thinking about it now, of course, that makes sense, especially with the 501 rolling up here at the, I think you said at the end of July or start of August. So yeah, that definitely does make sense. So I think that's all I have for now. But again, I want to thank you for everything you've done. And like I said, you've been a tremendous endorsement to me, not only me, but all of everybody in the chat room and everybody else and your subscribers here on YouTube. I just want to thank you again. Hope you have a great rest of the holiday and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you as well. Appreciate that. Yeah, the 501, of course, is available right now. If I was going to take an exam, I'm the kind of exam taker, I take a long time to study. There's way too much going around in my universe that I take a long time to study. So I will usually... If somebody said, which exam are you taking right now for Security Plus? If I was starting right now studying, I would take the 501 because I know coming up on 6 months, I might not be ready to take the exam yet. Some people, though, say, I'm going to take this exam next month. So maybe they'll take the 401 instead. But you've got the choice right now. You can take either one and you get the same certification from those and having those pieces there. We've got another call. Maybe we'll talk cryptocurrency after we get off of this call with the 817 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Caller, 817. Are you there? You're the only one. So if you're on the phone, it's you. We're down to our last call. Are you there? I might stick you back in the queue because we're not hearing you, caller. And I've got, I am definitely got my pot turned up. My potentiometer is turned up. Yeah, I've been kind of dabbling in the cryptocurrency thing for a while. Are we in a cryptocurrency bubble? Who knows? We don't. We're applying the value of cryptocurrency now to all of these different cryptocurrency types. I personally think we're right at the beginning of all of this. There is a remarkable value associated with cryptocurrency, and I'm speaking specifically from a business perspective now. As someone who has a business, who sells products online, there are middlemen that sit between me and my customers that allow or disallow transactions to occur. Sometimes the ability to allow or disallow transactions is based simply on where somebody lives. So you might be in a country that would like to purchase from me, but the credit card system that I have in place and the middleman that I have in place, which is important that for this particular kind of transaction of what we're doing today, that middleman's required. I can't take credit card transactions directly. I have to have somebody to process credit card transactions, but because someone happens to live in a certain country, they won't process them, period. They don't allow that. So there are certain cases where someone has wanted to purchase my products And I've not been able to provide them with any practical method to be able to do that. Plus, if you ever travel internationally, you know that moving from one country to another means that you have to transfer and exchange your currency into different types. That transaction or transfer of currency always has a percentage on top of it taken off as a service charge by the people doing the exchange. So there's an amazing amount of value associated with cryptocurrency, not just from a financial perspective, but the underlying blockchain technologies are remarkable in what they can provide in other parts of society. And we're also seeing, obviously, the financial part is one that's obvious, and it's one that people are happy to take advantage of because it gets rid of a lot of the barriers that we used to have before. There's obvious value there. And the transparency and security and other benefits there are very strong. We're starting to see banks now take advantage of this. We've had some banks in Japan and South Korea that transfer currencies all the time, but you're talking about exchanging won to yen, I think it is. And now, how do they transfer this money now? What if they were able to transfer it by simply sending cryptocurrency back and forth instantly with zero transaction costs? And they're able to have a complete, obvious breakdown in public of the ledger so that nobody's being shady or taking more than they should. Everything's out in the open. There's some great benefits of that technology that go beyond finance. And I see the value in that. There's truly value. Now, what is that value? That's what the media wants to call the bubble. But the media, I can tell you, as someone who's been working in with financial type systems, who's worked in companies that have been startups, who's watched the industry talk about finances and have seen these things happen over the years, the media knows nothing about this. Some of the things they've said recently show that they have not put any time or effort into learning what the value really is there. Soon people are going to figure this out. They're already starting to. So the value is, nobody's figured it out yet. It's extremely volatile. It's a market that goes up and down dramatically. If you don't like roller coasters, this is not the type of investment or technology you want to be involved with because this is not anything that you can rely on. You should probably find a nice blue chip stock and go with that one and take the buy some Disney stock, buy some Cisco, and just take the ongoing dividend from that one. But if you're somebody who's really excited about the potential, and I really am excited about the potential overall, not just for me, but for everybody who uses this, there are some great things that are going to happen here. It's very exciting to watch. It may all blow up. It may all just fall down and nobody decides, this was stupid, let's all not do it. That's the kind of thing. Interestingly enough, the volatility of things like Bitcoin is not as volatile as it's been in the past. In the past, it was really volatile. It would go up and down hundreds of percentages a day in value and go constantly up and down hundreds of percent in value. Today, if we look at Bitcoin's a good example. People never actually go to the numbers, by the way, if you look at the media. So today, if we look at Bitcoin, over the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has, which column am I looking at for this one? So Bitcoin has gone down 4.26% in the last 24 hours. 4%? Are you kidding me? I got stocks that are doing worse than that. The whole crypto market today is down. The problem is tomorrow it goes up the same amount or more. So keeping track of all of these different cryptography, cryptocurrencies, and what they're doing, not that volatile relative to what it was. So is it still something that swings wildly sometimes? Yeah, it does. It's not the market if you're looking for something solid, but that's not the point. We're still figuring it out. As soon as one of these finally finds the way to be mainstream, as soon as my mom and dad can use this technology, that's when we got it. Let me tell you a story quickly. I know there's somebody on the phone, so keep holding, caller. We'll come back to you. I've told this story before, but I think it applies here. Is back pre-2000, 1995, 96, 97, somewhere in there. I was working in Miami. Maybe it was well before that, actually. working in Miami at a life insurance company. This had to be 1990, 91, 92. This thing was happening called the internet. You could access the internet by calling up an internet service provider with your modem. There was no always on at that point, at least not for consumers like me and you. But you could call up with a modem you already had in your laptop or your computer and connect to the internet and go to NASA's website, go to these other large websites, go to this thing this guy at Stanford was setting up called Yahoo, and find these different resources. And it was exciting. Nobody had ever seen anything. We'd seen types of things like this with Prodigy, with those types of services, but we had never really seen anybody make it this broad and open before. So very exciting. We went to the management of the IT management of our company and did a formal presentation that said, here's this thing. It's called the internet. Let me show you an example of this. Connect up. I even made an internal website. We didn't even know what an intranet was at that point. I made an internal web server and I put our phone directory on it. And we could do searches on the phone directory and have those pieces there. And we said, this is exciting and we need to be a part of it. We need to have our own domain. We need to have a connection. Here's how much it would cost for a year. And I think back, it might have been $2,000. It was not a lot of money to be able to put up a T1 line, have connections to the internet. And they looked at us and said, you techie people, this is something technical. This will never be mainstream. You're never going to have that weird URL thing on the side of a bus. That's not something that people will do. It's not something that the normal American will use. We're never going to do that. And so I took that with me, and I suddenly realized the people in charge don't always know what's going on. They aren't always the smartest people in the room. They might be right, but whenever anybody tells me no now, I do a little more research to find out what they might be missing. And I think the cryptocurrency and what I've seen on CNBC and what I've seen on Fox and what I've seen on these financial networks, they're not, they haven't even spent the time. They haven't even watched a 15-minute video on YouTube to understand what in the world they're talking about. So that's the thing that excites me, is I think there's value here that once it becomes mainstream is going to be a big deal. And we're starting to see things like that with banks that are starting to implement it. We've seen a big push by Bitcoin Cash, which is not the same as Bitcoin, but Bitcoin Cash, and the proponents of that offering debit cards that will not be associated with US dollars or your local currency, but it will have Bitcoin Cash associated with it. Those are the types of things suddenly happening. And as soon as that happens, we'll have to think about, is that viable? Can we use that? I think it would be great. I'd love to have all the transactions on my site used this cryptography to be able to sell and make a business happen for me. I'd love to get rid of my credit card transaction providers. I'd love to get rid of that piece of it if I had the option. And we don't have to do that. You can have both. I do have both now, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. None of these cryptographic methods are perfect yet for the large-scale financial market use. There's a lot more work that needs to be done in scalability. There's a lot more work that needs to be done on redundancy and how it's implemented, but we're so close. We're really doing remarkable things with it. So works really well. And it's something you should, at a minimum, if you don't invest, if you don't understand it, you should absolutely understand what it is. And more importantly, as technologists, you should understand what the blockchain is and what that technology means, not to only finance, but how it could be used other places. Because that's going to be a remarkable technology to be able to implement in things that we do with IT security, quite honestly. So absolutely have a look at those things. So that's my 10 minutes on why cryptocurrency is important and what I think about it. And like anything else, all of this could be absolutely wrong. I don't think it is, but it could be. That's the thing. We just don't know until we start doing things with it. But it's exciting. And if you ever want to really watch, I don't watch a lot of sports. I'll watch those cryptocurrencies. That's my sport. And see, what is that doing? How are they using that? I want to know the backstory. Here's Litecoin. Who created that? Why was it created? How are people using it? Here's Cardano or Cardano. Here is the Ethereum. How are people taking advantage of all of these to be able to do something with them? Why do they exist? Why are there pages and pages of these in the coinmarketcap.com? That's what I want to know. I'm really interested in how we're using this, because ultimately I think we're going to make a lot of value from that. Back to the phones real quick. Back to the 404 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hey, this is Tony in Miami. How are you?
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yes, sir. I just had a quick question. And first of all, thank you for all you do for the community.
You're welcome, sir.
And why did you decide to go into, what you do now, as opposed to stay in the industry and continue on with your career? Well, what motivated you to, help others and do, and do this now?
Getting to here was an interesting path. It is one that was not, I can't say that it was something that I designed from the very beginning. I think I've mentioned on earlier study groups that when I started in IT, and I just gave the example, when I started with IT, there was no internet. We didn't have a worldwide network of anything. There was no YouTube. There was no Twitter. There was no Yahoo. There was certainly no Google. None of those things existed in the world. We had talk at that time that the idea was there. A good example, if you go back, and this is really remarkable given what's happened, but back in the day before we had the internet, Bill Gates was talking about how we have information at our fingertips. That was a very broad idea of the world that he talked about. And in fact, in that demonstration that he gave, which was well before any of this was fleshed out, he was talking about people with our shipping companies being able to take tablets around with them, and you could sign right there, and instantly you would know where your packages were. And that was something that was remarkable and unique, that we could apply to medicine, that we could apply to security, that we could apply to transportation, that we could apply to any market doing anything. And that's where the thinkers were really going. But I didn't at that time think, did I plan that I would go through a career learning operating systems and server operating systems and networking and protocol analysis and ultimately security, and then end up doing an online YouTube channel with training materials? No, there was no way at that time I would ever even consider those pieces. It just didn't exist. So you kind of do what everybody does, and people don't realize this, but there's kind of a flow to your career that you follow. And sometimes I took a wrong turn and ended up in the wrong place with the wrong company doing the wrong thing. But those are always learning experiences. You always realize what you did wrong when you do it. And you decide then, I'm not going to do that again. And you learn from those things. Ultimately, my career has been one where mostly I've been working for vendors. I've been working for companies that manufacture software or hardware that dealt with networking or security technologies. But ultimately, when you work in that type of role, there's usually a lot of travel. And my particular jobs and the jobs that I had, in some cases, were international travel. I am a Delta Million Miler, and I certainly have 1 million miles combined on all of the other airlines that I would ever travel on. So after a while, you get to where you just don't want to do that much travel. You would like to see your family every now and then. Perhaps they might even want to see you. So I thought, how could I build a business where I could do something that was technical, that something I enjoy, because I do enjoy these technical things that I do. How could I do it from home or from a place where I wouldn't have to travel so much? And how could it actually be economically viable? It needs to be a business that's profitable. It needs to be something that can feed the children and put some clothing on their bodies and send them off to school. That's the important part ultimately, is making sure that we could live off that. This is something that I started over 10 years ago. I started with writing books. I started with creating training materials that were only available for purchase. They were not available online. And the whole business sort of evolved since then. It has now evolved to whatever it is today. And it's still evolving. There are things we're changing and updating and modifying and changing the business model and moving in different directions all the time. I think it's just a nature of anybody's business. So that's what finally got me from where I was and what I was doing to finally doing something that might be what I call the local commute, where I wake up in the morning, I walk over into the studio and I do some work. I walk back across the patio to have lunch, and then I come back over here and finish up the rest of the day. That's what I was shooting for. And I tell people all the time, if you want to be able to get to that particular type of job or that particular role, you have to know what that's going to be, but then you have to build a path to it. And it did take more than 10 years of working during the day, working my day job, and at night and the weekends doing this. So I would spend every moment I had building this up. And ultimately, there was a point where I just cut the cord and this is all I did full time. So it wasn't design necessarily. It was more about how fast can I go and miss the wall. I hit the wall a lot of times, and you kind of get up and change direction and keep going again. But how fast can I get this going so that I'm no longer hitting the walls? And ultimately, this is how we got to where we are here. I don't know if that's really the answer to anybody's question, Tony, but that's sort of how we got to where we are now.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. You have certainly emerged as a leader, for all of us and for the community as a whole. So this is your giving back. I thank you so much for everything you've accomplished and you've done. And I wish you success and happy holidays. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Tony. Happy New Year. That's very kind of you to say. I will tell people, though, if you want to be an expert at anything, you make yourself an expert in that thing. There was at one time, I knew nothing of A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or any of these other things. I had taken industry certifications before. I worked in IT, so there's some what we call concentric diversification, if nothing else there. But that was not something that I thought I'd be able to do anything with. But as it turns out, there was a huge need. You have to find what people need. My problem was that my family members were taking their computers to these big box computer stores to get them fixed, and they weren't getting them fixed. They bring them back and they were still broken. I'd say, how can that be? We have the internet. Someone can easily find training materials that they need and be able to fix whatever they need by looking on the internet. And I started looking around and realized there's not a lot of good training on the internet. That was the opportunity. So find the niche you're looking to get into, find the hole that nobody else is filling, and go after that. And it may take a number of different modifications and steps to get to where you need to go. But if there's a need, somebody is going to be able to fill it. That's the way I looked at it anyway. 817 area code. Thank you for holding for so long. What's your name?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, thank you for what you do for the community. And my question is, what is the difference between the 401 and 501?
Oh, what is different between the two? A night and a day, sir, is different between the two. And I'm going to, I know if you're looking at the stream, you may be able to look at the stream to see this, because this is a visual type of answer for you. There is a remarkable difference between the 401 exam and the 501 exam in content. Now, obviously, it's all still Security Plus. There's no difference there. But one of the things that I did when I started going through the Security Plus exam is I wanted to go through the exam objectives, and I wanted to write down or mark the things that were covered in the 401 exam. And more importantly for me, I needed to find out what topics were new in the 501 exam. So these are the exam objectives. I guess I didn't do anything. The first page is sort of all in the 401. There's not much there. I need to go back and update the page. But anything that's yellow is new content in the 501 exam. Anything that's green is content that was also covered in the 401 exam. And anything that shows up as purple is something that needs to be updated a bit. So this is an older version of this document I was using, but you can see there's a lot of orange in here. I wonder where the existing one is that I had here. I had one that was very detailed in what was there. This is a 501 exam objective page, but you can see there's a lot of orange here. Almost everything in here. I would say 50% of the exam was new content, and 50% of the exam was some of the old content. And as somebody who's done a number of updates in the CompTIA exam objectives, that's a huge difference between the old version and the new version. Usually there's about a 20 to 25% difference in content. Well, they really changed the exam. I suspect part of that is because they were trying to line up the Security Plus, the CSA Plus, and the CASP exam, and they wanted them to flow a little bit better. So this was their opportunity to really make a big difference with the Security Plus. And that's why I tell people, don't ever study for the 401 and go take the 501 exam. Those are two completely different exams. Probably not difficult, in probably the same level of difficulty, but the content is very different between the two. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. So don't miss your opportunity there when you're going through these exams, is that there's so much there that's different. Make sure you're studying the right ones when you go through those pieces. If you're going to study for the 501 exam, make sure your book is a 501. Make sure you're watching my 501 videos, which we're almost done getting those out. Make sure you got the 501 course note. Make sure everything says 501 if you're taking the 501 exam. If you're taking the 401 exam, make sure everything says 401. Do not mix and match. Do not try to use one set of materials to study for the other exam. It's not worth it. It's too difficult. So go through those pieces. In chat room, some people are asking, will I put my courses on Udemy? I won't. The Udemy model does not work for the type of publishing we do. So they don't, in fact, they don't want my videos on there. I talk to them because my videos are, I give the video content away for free. I make all of my courses, every minute of every course is available to watch online for free. Whether I put that on YouTube or other services, they're free, and they will always be that way by the model that we've got set. I can't ever see changing that ever in the history of anything. Well, Udemy doesn't like that. They like their content to be very specific to Udemy, something unique. You could only get at Udemy. And I get that. I can appreciate that from their model, but obviously that's in direct conflict with what I'm trying to do. So I don't have any plans at all to put any of my content on Udemy. We're going to keep publishing locally on ProfessorMaster.com, and we'll just handle things that way. I like the Udemy platform. I think they've got a good thing going there. They're also, it's not as great for publishers on Udemy as it is for the consumers or the students. There's a lot of disadvantages for publishers to put their content on Udemy. So this is something I've done extensive research on. And if somebody was a publisher and you wanted to talk to me about that, you're more than welcome to contact me. I'm more than happy to tell you what I've found. But it's not one that fits very well with my particular model. So I don't have any plans there, which is a shame. I like their platform. As a student, I like their platform because it's easy to find what I want. The videos play nicely. I've got great community there. I get it. But it just doesn't fit with what I'm doing and having those things there. Well, we've gone through, 2 hours of this. Can you believe it? It's the end of the year. We now are coming up on the next set of things. For those of you that are keeping track of all of this, January is also a busy month. We're jumping right into January. So if you're somebody who has been watching these study groups, we obviously have study groups for January as well. Next week at this time, next Wednesday is the 3rd. That's coming up quick, will be our A+ study group. On Wednesday, the 10th, is the Network Plus. The next Security Plus study group is on the 17th, so you won't even have to wait a full month to do another set of Security Plus study groups. So that's something that's coming up pretty quick. So 3 weeks from now, we're going to do it all again, and you're welcome to tune in for the other ones as well. I want to thank everybody for joining me, not only for the Q&A we did in the first hour. Thanks for the great phone calls. Thanks for the folks asking the questions in the chat room. Wouldn't be able to do this without your help. Thanks for joining us. I hope everybody has a great holiday season. Have a great, happy new year. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone.